Michael Mansfield, welcome to the University of Huddersfield again.
Yeah, pleasure to be here.
Yes, did you enjoy your award ceremony today?
I enjoyed it as much as I did coming the first time, because I think the thing that struck me then and now is the feeling of a positive feeling of enthusiasm and commitment. I'm just talking about the students I met last time from the law department and the implementation of, if you like, a law clinic or a law shop in the centre of Huddersfield. I think that's amazing, because that's the sort of thing I was doing 30 to 40 years ago. And of course, with the lack of funding and austerity, to find something blossoming like that now is, I think, reassuring and enlivening.
And you are a champion of social justice. You said 20 to 30, what was it, 30 to 40 years ago. What made you start down that route? You know, what was there a catalyst? Was it?
Yeah, there was a catalyst. Yeah, there was actually. Well, there were several, but they all came together at the same time. I think there was a remarkable television series, and I'm a bit hooked on films, called The Defenders. It was an American series of a father and son who defended issues, social justice issues. And the interesting thing in the series was, unlike most Americans, it wasn't one where they always won. In fact, most of the time they lost. But the message was, you know, you can articulate and do a lot of justice for people who feel that what they wanted said was said. So there was that. And then I went to a university, not Huddersfield, went to Keele, not so far away, in Staffordshire, and that was near the Potteries. I'd hardly left London. I'd been brought up in London. I went to the Potteries, and as they are now, a very depressed area, and I couldn't believe the palpable poverty that there was there. And I thought, this isn't right, that these people are living in this way. And I was taken around the Potteries, went down a mine, and I just thought, this is another world. And so I was beginning to get the feeling that, you know, if maybe this is where I should go. The Defenders, i.e. the film, and then the series, and then I see the conditions in which people were living, and thought, you know, I've led too sheltered a life. Something's got to give here. So this is what I want to do. I mean, everybody said, you're mad. You've got no connections, which I didn't. But there we are.
And job satisfaction. Where does your job satisfaction come? Winning? Is it as simple as that?
I mean, winning helps, obviously, as any Grand Prix driver will tell you. But I don't enter these cases thinking, because you don't know whether you're going to win or you're not going to win, or how it's going to resolve itself. And even when you do win, sometimes, you know, that result doesn't necessarily bring happiness. So no, it's about, you know, the means by which you allow people the opportunity of access to justice, so that they feel as though they are satisfied. Then if they're satisfied, you know, then you're satisfied. And it's really ensuring that that happens. And it's a battle to get people into the courts, funded, and out of the courts again, and with some degree of success for them. But that's where it comes. And also meeting people and seeing the struggles that they've done. I mentioned in the ceremony Hillsborough, but there are many, many more, particularly families and of victims and so on, who have fought really long battles. And you say, wow, and you are inspired by them. And all the time, I've learned from everybody I've represented, really, you know, would I have been able to do it myself? I'm not sure. I'd like to think so.
And do you have one that you think, yes, that was particularly satisfying?
Well, it's invidious to make choices because somebody will say, but what about the one you did for so-and-so? They all have it in different ways because there are different clients. There's a different political backdrop, and there always is a political backdrop. I'm not operating in a vacuum, and I'm aware of, you know, outside pressures. But I mean, at the end of the day, I have to say the Hillsborough one takes the cake. It's not only the longest jury hearing in British history, but having reflected now for a couple of months on the narrative, which is what it was, as opposed to the verdict. I mean, it's changed its name. The narrative findings of that jury across the board. It's going to have far-reaching ramifications for the system of a kind that no other case. I mean, Lawrence came close to it. Lots of other ones are close to it. But this one, I think, has captured the imagination, and I suppose the illustration I give of how much good it has done, and I do believe it inspired the Home Secretary, soon to be Prime Minister tomorrow, when she came to give a speech to the Police Federation this year.
Theresa May you're talking about?
Yes, Theresa May. I mean, she won't be Home Secretary after tomorrow, unfortunately, because she did take an interest in Hillsborough. She listened very carefully and she facilitated. And I think the result penetrated her conscious and unconscious thoughts. And the speech she gave to the Police Federation about basically the toxicity of police corruption over the generations and how it still has to be expunged was brilliant. And so I think for a case like that to have percolated through to the higher echelons of the political fraternity, who often don't listen, let alone act, I think, you know, that is an achievement in itself. But it's also an example to everybody else. Hang on in there.
May I ask you about silence of suicide?
Yeah. Silence of suicide, well...
Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, well, last year in the spring, quite unexpectedly, but I'm afraid it's a feature of, more of a feature of the lives we lead now, and in the context of austerity, redundancy and so on. My daughter, one of my daughters, the elder daughter, committed suicide. And I think I was in the middle of Hillsborough and I was so shocked, but fortunately I was living with Yvette, who's here today, and she helped, along with the families as well at Hillsborough, overcome extraordinary pain. I just couldn't believe it had happened. You don't believe it could have happened, and you keep saying, why could this have happened? I knew she was troubled. I knew there was a problem. She got a redundancy notice, and basically she got 2 children who were seriously ill, and like everybody, every other family in the country, you're struggling to survive to the next day, and that happens. So it sears through your life, cuts right through it. And I went obviously to the funeral, and I had an opportunity to speak to everybody there. There were hundreds of people, some of them I'd never met before. And without thinking, I did speak about suicide and used the word. Because for me, it wasn't embargoed, but for many people it is. And people came up at the ceremony and said, "You've mentioned the unmentionable, the elephant in the room. Then they talk about themselves, their relatives, somebody, brothers, husbands, sisters, wives, who've committed suicide. But they've said, we felt imprisoned. We couldn't talk about it. And why couldn't they talk about it? Because they felt guilty, or they felt angry, or there is this taboo. And of course it's not difficult to see why, because originally suicide was a criminal offence. When I started at the bar, it had just been, as it were, decriminalised, but it's still a criminal offence for you to help somebody commit suicide. And it's worse than that. You were, in a sense, excommunicated from your community, and you lost your property. So this disapproval has been attached to suicide. So Yvette and I thought, well, let's provide a forum for people at least to talk about it, come together and recognise that they're not islands, they're not trying to fight a battle on their own, but other people understand it. And it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to be critical. It's okay to, to as it were, get to grips with something which, you can't, it's difficult to understand why somebody did it. And of course, it gets described as selfish. Why would somebody want to do that and leave everybody else to clear up the mess? All these feelings, get them out there, get them addressed, and then, you can begin to get people to move on a bit. You'll never forget it. Obviously, she's with me every day. I mean, I think about it every day. I think more about her now than I did when she was alive. And that's a terrible thing. I wish it was the other way around. But and it's been successful. I mean, Yvette's been the organising power behind it all as well, because people need, support, and they need to be encouraged. And they need to be told, it's okay, you can do this. So we've had several public meetings, and the feedback is very good, and so we're going to continue doing that. And in fact, funnily enough, next week we are due, still, I think, to meet Theresa May about this, only in old guise as Home Secretary. So we're not sure whether she'll keep the appointment. We hope she will. And it's to talk about this and mental health, because that's very much on the cards at the moment.
The University of Huddersfield, inspiring tomorrow's professionals.